Our next panellist to introduce is Dr. Jan Mangal, who's an advocate for Guyana's interests in oil and gas, a former advisor to President Granger, had a career with Chevron worldwide, and has a doctorate in engineering from the University of Oxford. Yeah.
Thank you. So the contents of the presentation. First, why am I here? What is my interest in Guyana? What is my background? Then I'll look at this union of Guyana and an industry that Guyana does not know, but the industry knows countries like Guyana very well. They've done it before in West Africa and elsewhere. Then the ingredients for success, failure, and an assessment of the performance to date in Guyana. So my interest in Guyana, I come from oil and gas. I like the industry. The solid dots are places where I've lived. The dashed dots, places where I've worked. So I've worked and lived around the world. I'm Guyanese by birth, and I've had an international career with Chevron. I've done 5 different jobs with Chevron around the world. 7 years in Houston, mainly project management, project development, offshore projects. Then my family and I went off to Vietnam with Chevron for 3 years, to Saigon, which was a wonderful experience, and then to Manila for another 2.5, 3 years. I left Chevron after my job in Manila in 2015, 2016, because my next opportunity was in Kazakhstan, and I wasn't too keen on taking or going to Kazakhstan. Around the same time, Guyana found oil. And in 2016, I started discussions with the President of Guyana and did some pro bono work for the President of Guyana, writing white papers for him around oil and gas. Then we looked for funding so he could hire me. We found funding from the Inter-American Development Bank in March of 2017. And that's when I started my formal position with the President. It lasted just 13 months, but that was funded by the Inter-American Development Bank, and I worked closely with them. My time with the President of Guyana finished in March of last year, 2018. Since then, I've been working on my own as an advocate for Guyana's interests. What I see is Guyana's interest. I haven't been working for anyone, I'm just on my own. And that's around good governance, anti-corruption. Guyana and the oil industry. This is a risky combination. We've seen it before around the world. We've seen it over and over again. Small, weak country with a history of corruption and a history of struggling to get ahead. And the oil industry, which knows how to go into these countries and extract unfair value and maximize value. And actually countries become worse off when these marriages and unions occur in many places. So a bit on oil and gas in Guyana. So this is the coastline here. This is Guyana, this is Venezuela, that's Suriname. So this is the Atlantic Ocean. In 2015, Exxon drilled a well in its block, which is this long block here straddling border to border of Guyana. It's called a Stabroek block. Exxon drilled a wildcat well, meaning it's kind of a first well. That well was the Liza 1 well, and that well struck oil in 2015. That was in May, around May 2015, when an announcement was made that Exxon struck oil. Elections in Guyana just were around the same time. The announcement came out days after the election. And I'll speak about that. Then, right around the same time, just weeks or days before Exxon makes its announcement that there's oil in Guyana, blocks around Stabroek blocks start disappearing, being awarded secretly to small companies that have no experience with oil, that know nothing about developing oil, that are linked to individuals in Guyana. Countries do not award oil blocks to Joe down the street. You award it to Chevron or Exxon or Shell or BP. You only award these deep water blocks. The companies have a track record of developing oil around the world. But Guyana did not do that. Now let's look at Guyana itself. What is Guyana bringing to this union? What are the risk factors with Guyana as a party to this union with the oil industry? So Guyana gained independence in '66, and its economic performance since then has been very lackluster. As the moderator, David Jessup, mentioned, expectations, a country rich in natural resources, gold, diamonds, timber, a country that is strategically located at the top of South America. Guyana could be the doorway for the Anglophone world into Latin America. Guyana could be a little Singapore of the region. Strategic trading partner between South America and the Caribbean and Europe. What has happened? Nothing much. Local politics is acrimonious, and this is the reason why nothing much has happened. Race is the main differentiator still today in politics in Guyana after 52 years. People don't vote on issues, people vote on race. So no issues get addressed. Nothing happens. There's no national development plan. There's no leadership with a national outlook. Everything is party politics and race. There is a large trust deficit. No one trusts each other in Guyana because of that. Guyana has suffered bad leadership. It's suffered dictatorship. It's suffered corrupt officialdom. It is quite a corrupt country. Guyana, because of this, Guyana suffered one of the highest brain drains in the world. So when bright young Guyanese go to university in Guyana and they want to move up, and they realize you can't move up by working hard, you can't move up through a meritocratic system, you can only move up if you toe the line, they leave. So we've had 52 years of good people leaving Guyana. So what is left? It's a stagnant, uncompetitive environment. So now that stagnant, uncompetitive environment, they are resistant to people coming in. Now they have oil, they will shut doors down. You've got to say, we have oil, we don't need the diaspora coming in, we don't need foreign experts coming in, we have the money. So the brain drain and that stagnation internally in Guyana is a serious issue, and it has to, again, just like corruption and other issues, it has to be addressed. Past resource exploitation, which is mainly gold, is not a story of success. Guyana has a lot of gold, but it just gets smuggled, it disappears. The environment has suffered. If our rivers are polluted because of gold mining, the turbidity because you have dredges in the river. When I was young, I spent my childhood in these rivers fishing, and the water was perfectly clear. Now I can't. It's very difficult to find a river in Guyana to go that's clean. So if we can't even manage the environment with gold, how are we going to manage the environment with oil? However, the country has largely maintained its huge green potential, and this is really around natural rainforests. And the reason the forests are still there is probably because nothing has happened. The economy hasn't taken off, but at least we have our large tropical rainforests there as a resource for the future, and hopefully they will be utilized and not exploited. So that was Guyana. Let's look at the oil industry now. What is oil industry coming with? Some risk factors. Oil revenue can be transformative, and it should be, but this is not the norm, unfortunately. And this is what really drives me, because I know the industry and I know how transformative it could be. I see a huge opportunity, but I see all of these risks that it's not going to materialize. The industry can actually worsen the situation in countries with existing instability, weak countries like Guyana. Oil revenue raises the stakes for local competition, political competition. The oil industry is also itself associated with massive corruption, mainly in rewarded blocks. The resource curse that Colin spoke about is very difficult to manage, even in well-run countries. So that'll be a challenge. These large oil companies like Exxon are powerful entities internationally in their own right. And they usually have very powerful countries or sovereigns supporting their interests, like Exxon in the United States. So if Guyana wants to get a fairer deal with Exxon, you're not only up against Exxon, you're up against the US, or an element in the US. Then, with regard to oil, although it's difficult to imagine a world without oil, the negative effects are coming to the fore: climate change, and there is a bit of move to around electrification. So this risky combination, this is why I'm excited by Guyana. There is no need for us to go and repeat the mistakes seen in most oil-rich developing countries. There's no need. All the evidence is there. The things I talk about, people have written many papers on. It's all out there. There's no need to go and repeat these mistakes. But Guyana is already repeating some of these mistakes, and it's only a couple of years since we've had oil. Guyana should be a test. This is what I see. Guyana should be a test case to prove to the world that oil can be done well, in a fair and equitable and sustainable way. That is what I see Guyana. I see it as an experiment. But my worry is the experiment is not going to work. But Guyana is an opportunity to prove to the world that oil can be done well. So let's look at the ingredients for success and for failure for Guyana, and actually the performance to date. Let's first of all look at the international oil business. There'll be a few themes there, but let's start in the international oil business. So how can Guyana, what are the ingredients for Guyana to succeed, and what may make it fail? Guyana needs to recognize that there is a difference between the interests of the oil companies and the interests of the country. Currently, the government, when I started there in March of 2017, did not. The government felt that Exxon would get them elected. The government felt that Exxon would do everything for them. The government pushed Exxon to accelerate first oil before the next election. So when I started with the president, he asked me to do a presentation to cabinet the next day. And what I'm talking about here, I spoke about, and I said the first mistake the country has made and the government has made is to ask Exxon to accelerate first oil, because that is actually the resource curse happening there already. Because the government is trying to use oil to win it an election. And then, because the government is in a rush, Exxon can extract value from the government. Whenever you're negotiating with someone like Guyana is negotiating with Exxon, you can't be in a rush.
Right.
So, because of this lack of capacity in the country, lack of knowledge about oil, which you can't blame people for down there, there's no oil before, but because of this lack of knowledge, the government just wanted to saw Exxon as their savior, and would do the hard work for them to get them re-elected. So Guyana, instead of accelerating the oil company, it should have slowed down the oil company. It should have said, Exxon, you need to take it easy. We have no capacity. You need to wait until we build up our capacity. But the government has just given Exxon carte blanche. Just do what you want. Countries don't do that. We need to constrain our production. When you read the newspaper, Exxon drills a well, immediately Exxon says, our production will go from 500,000 barrels a year to 750,000 barrels a year. People are talking about a day. People are talking about a million, even a million barrels. However, it is not up to the oil company to decide what the production will be. It is up to the country. The country needs to develop a depletion plan and say, we don't want all the oil produced now in the next 10 years. We want it produced over a long time. We want it there for our grandchildren. But the government is doing none of that. It is just Exxon who is calling the shots. We also need to reverse the monopoly that this one company, Exxon, has in Guyana. Exxon knows it's on to a good thing. It's coming to Guyana, it can dominate everything. It can, it's the same strategy a bit that Total has in the Republic of Congo in Africa, where Total dominates the government and everything in that industry there that other foreign companies can't even get into the ROC. So Exxon sees Guyana as this small place that can dominate everything. And the country needs to start addressing that and breaking up that monopoly. Now, many of the international bodies who I assumed would help a country like Guyana do not help. Chatham House. I had high regard for Chatham House. They've been working with the Minister of Natural Resources for years, right next to him, when that minister did nothing. He didn't hire a single oil and gas professional. Guyana needs to hire dozens of professionals. For 3 years, that minister didn't hire a single oil and gas professional. Chatham House was right there advising him. So then Commonwealth Secretariat, they drafted the Petroleum Commission Bill, which every stakeholder in Guyana who reviewed it criticized it because it had the minister with complete decision-making authority over Guyana's whole petroleum industry. You do not put a government official in charge of oil and gas. Mexico has learned the hard way. Colombia has learned the hard way. You have civil society and industry on boards and politicians sitting there as equals. You never put a government official in charge of an industry like oil. Otherwise, it'll be used for elections and for political reasons. And then when the industry will come to a standstill at the next elections. But Commonwealth Secretariat drafted that bill. And one of my tasks with the President was to challenge that bill. Then the Sovereign Wealth Fund bill, which Colin mentioned, is a similar issue. It's a decision-making structure in the bill, and it's the Commonwealth Secretariat who drafted that bill. So these bodies, entities who I saw would help a country like Guyana, they're more interested in just being seen to be involved. They're more interested in, they act like consultants. They're not willing to challenge government officials. They just go along with government officials. So the international oil business, second part. There's a need for strong leadership which is willing to challenge some of the largest companies in the world and their sovereign backers. For Guyana to succeed, we need strong leadership willing to challenge these companies and their sovereign backers. Guyana cannot succeed if Guyana is not willing to challenge. It's like any negotiation. You have to challenge, you have to be a counterweight, you have to be a counterpart. And Guyana needs to recognize, the global economics of natural resource is really one of slavery and exploitation. You need to look at this thing in a historical frame. The human resource is the most important resource in the world. It's not oil. Before we had oil, it was a human resource. No, it's oil is a valuable resource. But it is one of exploitation and power games and domination, and that is the thing Guyana needs to recognize and start thinking about that and playing that game. Guyana needs to get comfortable renegotiating these contracts. Now Guyanese politicians are on about sanctity of contract. Well, in the natural resources sector, there's no sanctity of contract. Trinidad is renegotiating contracts. Streetleaf in Liberia renegotiated as soon as she got in. Columbia University, they have put together a list of all the countries with renegotiating contracts. So the politicians in Guyana on both sides, and also some new political parties, they are so scared of Exxon that they're just rabbiting this thing about, we need sanctity of contract because they're scared to challenge Exxon. They're scared to challenge Exxon's contract. But renegotiation is something that the politicians need to get comfortable with. On this issue of international power, the oil countries, all companies, the majors, they actually benefit more if Guyana is weakened. Look at the chaos in countries in Africa. Countries fall apart, all companies make more money. They don't make less. So Guyana needs to be very careful that there will be forces trying to weaken Guyana's democracy, not strengthen it, external forces. Because when Guyana falls apart, all companies make more money. The developed world will happily exploit corrupt, chaotic countries. You know, the public perception here, as someone in England, you pick up the newspapers, oh look, well, what's happening? Oh well, it's just this crazy third world country. You don't give a damn because you think, oh well, they can't help themselves, so why should we care if they're being exploited? So that is why Guyana needs to focus on transforming itself into a well-run and efficient place that is rules-based. If Guyana is not perceived like that by the developed world in the West, Guyana will be exploited even more. The border issue with Venezuela is being used to extract more value from Guyana. This is an ongoing debate with myself and government ministers. It is clear that Exxon and the US are using the border issue to extract more value from Guyana because ministers are making excuses. Why don't you push Exxon? No, we can't because they will protect us. Exxon will not protect Guyana against Venezuela. Guyana's route is one through diplomacy and ICJ, which it is following. That is the route to the solution. It is not giving up your resources to a bodyguard. The bodyguard is not going to help you. Exxon doesn't care where the resources are. And Venezuela has 230 billion in reserves. Guyana has 5 to 10. Exxon is going to be back in Venezuela ASAP once Maduro goes. They don't care about Guyana. They don't care where the border lies. My initial focus was on transparency with the president. As soon as I started my terms of reference, transparency was the #1 item with the president. We need to release the contract. These are companies like secrecy. They benefit from secrecy. Countries do not benefit from secrecy. All the contracts need to be released. I had meetings with the ministers. They were completely against it. The president would listen to the ministers, listen to me, and then a couple months later, he just released the contract. So, there is a lack of understanding, or even worse, in the level in government around what is good for the country. But the president made a very bold move, releasing the Exxon contract, and then a number of contracts after that. You see very few countries doing that. So that was very bold of the president of Guyana. Then the problem with the award of those 2 blocks, I kind of spoke about that before. But that is an issue that needs to be addressed. These blocks were awarded through secret, closed-door negotiations. Countries should not do that. They should have public auctions. When they award blocks, it needs to be a public, competitive auction. But I was going back and forth with ministers. They were arguing, no, secrecy is good. We need these closed-door negotiations. And I was saying, no, it has to be a public, competitive auction. Now, finally, they seem, with the new Department of Energy, they seem to be coming around saying that the next any more blocks will be awarded through public auctions. Tackling corruption is needs to be a key focus item for Guyana. We need to recognize the bad players around the world. They're already swarming to Guyana. Another issue around corruption, we're talking about oil now, but the opportunity for Guyana is not really oil. The opportunity for Guyana is how to take that revenue and rebuild the country. It's not around oil, it's around schools, hospitals, roads. It's transforming the country, it's doing what we didn't do for 52 years. But to do that, you need competent project managers in government. You need a competent public sector. We don't have that. So that the government can't execute a project. The last government, there's some big disasters. They spent $200 million on a sugar plant called Skeldon, and Skeldon never worked. There was a huge furor over Amalia Falls, which was going to be a hydro project, which started about $200 million and then quickly went up to about $800 million. Issues around lack of transparency, corruption. So that's what happens with big public projects in Guyana. But if we can't even build something ourselves, what are we going to do with our revenue? It's just going to be squandered. So there needs to be a huge focus on the procurement side, the project management side. Again, leadership, there's a need for a visionary type of leadership that focuses on national development. And we don't have that because of the bickering over the racial politics. Also, we should fix Guyana's issues before we start to worry about oil. Oil will exacerbate the issues. Oil is not going to help us fix our existing issues. We need to keep the oil industry at arm's length. We don't need refineries in Guyana. They don't work, small refineries. But there are many in the private sector and the international, these vultures, international vultures, running around telling Guyana, oh, you need to build this, you need to do this. We do not need to go and waste our money building a whole set of stuff. The oil needs to be kept offshore and we use the revenue. And then in 5 or 10 years, when we realize we can do things properly, then we can consider a refinery or consider that type of downstream type endeavor. Oil only works in countries where there's strong civil society. Ghana in Africa, which Colin spoke about, it's a big country, but they have strong civil society, much stronger than Guyana. Guyana's civil society is weak. Guyana's civil society is like politicized. So it flips when there's an election and there's a change in party. So we don't have strong civil society. Exxon is also influenced for civil society. There are 3 levels to influencing that Exxon has done. They influence the politicians, that's easy, to do it all around the world. Second one, they influence the private sector by giving contracts to lawyers. All the big private sector people in Guyana now have contracts with the oil and gas industry, so they're gone quiet. They're not going to challenge Exxon. The third and last, and the more difficult one to influence, is a civil society. Exxon made a donation of $10 million to Conservation International, which should be an environmental group, but now they're going around doing oil and gas governance in Guyana, which is a bit strange. And they are plugging money into all the civil society players in Guyana. So Exxon knows exactly what it's doing. So it sounds pretty negative, but I think all the issues I raise are issues that need to be addressed, and it's not going to be perfect. We won't address them perfectly, but they need to be addressed so as to increase the chance of success in Guyana.